I did not grow up with a kitchen full of from scratch home cooked meals. My mom worked during my childhood and she did a wonderful job taking care of us. I did learn some basic skills of cooking and cleaning and making a lot of food out of boxes or prepackaged ingredients. So when I got married, I did not know much about cooking from scratch. I pretty much knew how to make hamburger helper and mac and cheese, and that was about it. I ate a lot of cereal for breakfast because I was in public school, and so it was always a rush in the morning to get out the door. And we had a lot of mac and cheese out of a box because that was easy and quick and something my sister and I could make on our own when my mom wasn't there. Now, one of my favorite meals that my mom made when I was a kid was cheeseburger pockets. And she made these out of the Rhodes rolls, like the frozen ones that you get in the freezer aisle at the grocery store. And they were delicious, and it worked really, really well as long as you could keep the dough frozen. On our way home, the grocery store was a good 45-minute drive from our house, and so it was often that the rolls would be thawed out and even raised a bit before we got home, which would then ruin our meal. But if we could keep the dough frozen and get home and get it back in the freezer, it worked really, really well to use those frozen roll balls to make our cheeseburger pockets. It wasn't until my husband and I met and started dating and then got married that I realized you could make rolls from scratch. It was not something I had ever seen anyone do and not something that was ever done at my house, and so it was a new thing that I could learn to do, and I was super excited about it. My mother-in-law taught me her roll recipe, and they are so delicious. Everyone always gives lots of compliments anytime I make them, and they're really easy, much easier than I would have thought they would have been when I was younger, eating those frozen rolls that were super delicious, but not always the most healthy thing for you. Now, I am definitely not a professional cook. There are a lot of things that I don't know, but I do know how to follow a pretty simple recipe, and I know how to do most things in my kitchen. I've learned what my family likes to eat. Sometimes I make things that they don't enjoy, and then I just make a mental note and remember to not cook those things again. But I have learned quite a bit since those first days of marriage, almost 23 years ago now, and I thought I would share a few tips with you today on how you can learn to cook from scratch if that is something that you want to do and you don't know about. I think our society today is a instant gratification society. We want things now and we don't want to wait for them. And cooking from scratch can take time, and it takes effort to throw a meal together. You can't just take it out of the freezer and stick it in the oven to cook. You have to get the ingredients and measure them and put them together just perfectly so that you will have the outcome that you want. My first tip is to start with something simple. Begin with basic recipes, like a soup is pretty easy to make following a recipe without messing it up. You could also make some pasta sauces fairly easily by following a recipe, along with just some roasted vegetables in the oven. These are easy things that the recipe is not complicated, the techniques are not complicated. You just have to actually do them instead of the soup, for instance, opening the can and warming it up. You have to make your grocery list, write out each ingredient you will need for your soup, and then follow the directions in putting that soup together. Along with starting simple, you want to try to just keep things basic and focus on the staple foods that you eat every day. You could master a bread recipe, for instance. Find a simple homemade bread recipe if making bread is something that you really want to learn to do, and repeat that recipe over and over and over until you get it right. I have burned a lot of food in my cooking days. I have made things incorrectly. I've had things not turn out. Just the other day, actually, the smoke alarm was going off in the house because I was burning something on the stove. So even after 23 years of cooking a meal for my family every single day, I still burn things. But whenever you repeat the same recipe over and over and over, the same process over and over and over, eventually you're going to figure out what works the best. And then you can just stick with that basic recipe. You don't have to make things complicated. Something else that you can do that is a really simple thing, but it has a huge impact in your kitchen, would be to make homemade broth from scratch. This is seriously the simplest thing to do. You take the bones from your meat. It could be from a beef roast that you cooked for dinner the night before, or it could be from some chicken legs that you had made a few days ago. Put those bones in your crock pot, fill it with water, add a little splash of apple cider vinegar, and turn it on and let it cook for 24 hours, 48 hours, as many hours as you want, to get all of that good nutrition out of the bones. And then what I do is the simplest way, letting the broth cool, and then I transfer it into freezer bags, quart-size freezer bags, and I put it in the freezer. And then when I want to use it, I put one of my freezer bags into a bowl, let it thaw overnight, and then I have it to use the next day. But that is a super simple, very hands-off cooking method that you can use to start making food from scratch to help improve the nutrition of the food that you're feeding your family.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my own. Even in the darkest times, you give me hope. So I lean on you when I've lost my way. I keep holding on for a better day. I lean on you when the world's astray. I left my heart open so you hear my prayer. I left my heart open so you hear my prayer.
My next tip for learning to cook from scratch is to focus on learning only one skill at a time. When you are first beginning, I know it's exciting. You want to know all the things and be able to cook all of the yummy food, but it really is best if you focus on learning one skill. Master that bread recipe, get it down to where you don't even have to look at the recipe anymore. You know exactly what you're doing every single time, and it turns out perfectly every single time, and then move on to something else. If you try to do everything all at once, you're going to overwhelm yourself, and then it'll be easy to give up because you'll just feel like since you can't do one thing, there's no way you're going to be able to get all this other things done. So you just give up and quit trying to learn anything, and that's not what you want. So you want to make sure you master one skill first before you move on to the next thing. Something else that is really important with learning to cook from scratch is making sure that you have all of the right ingredients that you will need for that cooking. So whenever you're making your meal plan, that's another important step. Make sure you write down every single ingredient that you will need. I don't know how many times I have thought I was going to make something, I start making it, and then realize I don't have all the ingredients, and then I have to come up with something else to make already using what I've got mixed together, which I am pretty able to do now because I've been doing this for a long time, but that can totally throw a beginner off, not having all of the ingredients that you need. It's really important to make sure your kitchen is well stocked. Another tip that I have is to learn how to repurpose your leftovers. This is something that I do all the time because we often have leftovers and not many people in my house are fans of leftovers. So what I will do is take a meal that's left over in the fridge and turn it into something else. A good example of that is these meatballs that I made on this day. We had meatballs left over, and so I took those a few days later. I chopped up some chicken breast, and then I cooked the chicken breast in some butter in a frying pan. I added that to the meatballs and I put it all into a casserole dish. And then I took this sauce that I had left over, which is just a creamy white sauce, and I poured that over the top of the meatballs and the chicken, and I added some cheese on top. And then I warmed it up with the leftover mashed potatoes and also some leftover macaroni and cheese that we had in our fridge. And that's what we had for lunch on that day that I repurposed these leftovers. This helps you to keep from wasting food. It helps you to learn more creativity, maybe even learning some new techniques of how to cook things in different ways. But it's just a good skill to have to keep from wasting anything, that you can take your leftovers and repurpose them into something else. I hope that these tips were an encouragement for you. I hope that they will help you as you strive to honor the Lord in serving your family through your kitchen. If you cook from scratch often and you have any tips that you want to share, make sure you leave those down in the comments. I would love to hear them and maybe even apply them in my own kitchen. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you all on the next video. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.